Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Donbass Media Forum. Our panel now will be dedicated to a discussion with our colleagues. The topic is financial model for regional media. I have with me Olena Shchepak, co-founder of Cherkasy news agency 18000, Valery Garmash, one of the best media representatives of the East. He's editor-in-chief of the website 6262.com.ua, and Natalia Pakhaichuk, head of innovation projects at CID Media Group. We also have with us Oleh Pastukhov, representative of the US Embassy, who will on the questions of development of regional media. And we also have Tetiana Stepykina, program manager for East and South of Ukraine, Internews. Happy to see all of you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that our conversation will be very interesting because talking about money is always interesting. I would also like to ask our audience to be active, to ask questions. If you have any, my colleagues will be happy to answer them. And of course, I will select the best questions. Before we start our discussion, I would like to say that I am seeing transformation which is happening at the regional level, which is much interest to many people, not only to those people who are interested in media consulting, media development, and others, and other colleagues as well. I see that regional media are more attractive. They have alternative sources of funding, and I hope that our colleagues will share their experience. Our audience will definitely find something useful. So my first question is to Olena. When we were preparing to this conversation, I asked you, can you please tell us how you managed to attract private money to support your activities, but to stay independent? Let me start from telling you about our media 18000. This is the postal index of our city. We were created in 2019. However, our team had worked before in another media that had an owner. However, the policy was quite adequate. Then it started changing, and we understood that it wasn't okay for us. So that is why we decided to found our own media. We started finding for investments because we didn't want to have an owner, businessman, or politician. We didn't want to have that. That is why we decided to found investments for this project. We have Cherkasy IT Cluster, an organization which unites 18 IT companies of our city. We reached out to them and told them about our goal, about our team. Our goal was to cover the local news in an unbiased manner. They believed in us, so they helped us develop our website, and they helped us with investments. This city cluster is still one of the key sources of money which we have. About 60% of our budget depends on them. But we also develop other investment sources. We're developing our commercial department. Before that, we tried to sell advertising ourselves, but we understood that we need a department who will do that, who will find advertisers. We are also developing a readers club. These are people from Cherkasy who donate small amounts of money and who help us stay afloat. And on top of that we also use grant money. We try to attract donors by creating interesting projects. 60% of your budget. IT cluster, local IT cluster supports you. You said that they believed in you. I mean, you personally or your idea? What was their approach? Did you have a pitch? Did they have a budget, or you just said we have a background, we have a team, and we proved it many times? That is why we are now looking. So how it happened in practical terms? How your colleagues can use a similar approach to attract investment? Can you please tell us? Just can you provide us with a checklist or something like that? In our situation, part of the IT company knew about us, they followed our activities. Because, for example, on our team, the only investigators that investigative journalists that work in Cherkasy were our representatives. Of course, we had a pitch. It was presentation of our project. We presented our budget because back then we no longer had the opportunity to have a budget. That is why we said what kind of budget we need for the year to come. Now, every year we meet this IT cluster. We tell about our updated plan. We tell about our project. So we share with them our experience and they decide whether to continue their support. As of now, this cooperation goes on. I would like to say what was important to us. We didn't want them to intervene into our information policy. We told them about principles, about that we don't want to publish unmarked advertising. We do not promote politicians or other people. Our activities is open and transparent. However, it was also important to us to have the final say at the editorial office, taking into account our professional experience on the journalist principles that all of us know. This principle of cooperation with the cluster is still there. First and foremost, they help us because they see a kind of a social component. They want Cherkasy to have this media, because unfortunately it seems to me that today we are the only media in Cherkasy which is open, transparent, which reports on its source of money, which doesn't get money from politicians for unmarked advertising, and they value that. So it turns out that you have a pool of investors who look these investments as social, no return investment, and this is their contribution to development of social journalism in Cherkasy. But before I ask this question, I would like you to tell about yourself, about what Internews is doing in concrete terms for independent media, and in particular for the media in the east of Ukraine. Because Internews has been working in Ukraine for 30 years, if I'm not mistaken. This is a rare donor which is focused on development of free media. You are absolutely right. Internews works in Ukraine since 1992, and we support independent and professional media, open media, transparent media. And now we are implemented 5-year program to support Ukrainian free media funded by USAID, which is called Media Program in Ukraine. This is 5-year program which started in spring 2018. It will last until 2023. We provide institutional support to some organizations, media organizations, civil society organizations, which are our partners, which have been our partners for these 5 years. From time to time, we also have thematic contests, so-called small grants, which get selected, and then we support them. Then the donor decides whether to support them. So for the past 5 years, we have been developing in that direction. We have big partners and small partners who can work in the regions, or this might even be national media. However, these are the media that propose innovative projects, innovative ideas, which will have an impact. So in 2023, what are your expectations when from your partners when this process will finish? Our aim is to have all these organizations that are supported by us. We want them to become more resilient. For us, it is very important to help media develop themselves so they do not depend on donor support. So our task is to take a media who at the beginning supports fully or partly from donor support and to help them grow to the point where they can be fully independent, including financial independence. You're absolutely right. We want to develop their institutional resilience and financial independence because donor support might end tomorrow. It might disappear or decrease. That is why we are explaining our partners that probably tomorrow you won't have this support. That is why you need to develop your models of financial sustainability and resilience to introduce new ideas and then start working. Thank you so much. I will get back to that. And now a very important question to all this. But before that, I would like to present the case of my colleague Natalia. We've known each other with Natalia many years ago. We met at an accelerator. If you let me, can I tell the background? CID Media. Natalia invited me to the forum. There I presented to reading model as a new option to attract alternative money. And they said, come and visit us. We'll see what we can do. Back then, Natalia was chief editor of one of the units. They developed very fast. They focused a lot on scaling up in the regions. I cannot tell you the exact numbers without your permission, but we all know that back then, this unit wasn't the most resilient, I mean, financially. However, I know that now this is a driver of growth because you have launched new innovation projects, and one of the key focuses is to attract money from the audience. I know that you have this great experience of collecting money from the audience. Can you please tell us what are the results of your activities and what can be your recommendations to us? How much time do I have? As much as you want. Thank you so much for the introduction. In 2019, we met. It was a very important year to us when we started diving deep into innovative things. I now see that a lot of colleagues at the innovative market only start understanding what is reader support. And we have rich experience, so that is why we can share our experience in this area. In 2019, at the forum, we discussed readers' model. That is why 2020 we already knew what to do. Our editorial office works with crowdfunding instruments, tools, and you rightly pointed that we are quite successful in that. I think that part of our success is that
And success is there because a lot of work has been done before, and our editorial office, all its existence has been developing by the professional community. We're always invited the leading journalists and experts in order to, make this media forum and to have the information field of media community of our region. We have. I don't because we want it to be not only Kiev and Lviv to be fragments of journalism. We want everyone to know that in Lutsk there's also good journalism, and we have lots of media and they are professionals. So in some way, very inorganic way, in several years around this region, There was the journalistic environment of France. And so we have gathered the group, and also our readers and fans joined this group, and the environment of brand ambassadors was created. And in that environment, it turned out that there are many people who are really our fans, and they're ready to promote us. And when pandemic happened, everybody had to stay in lockdown for a while, and they were, strangling from this, suffocating from the lack of communication and impressions. And we had a very active communication in this region. We were communicating with people what to do, share about our success and our failures. And we decided, let's go together. Let's take together a trip, because our editorial office didn't take business trips for a while, but now we cannot afford it because our income has reduced. So we suggested, let's organize the logistics, the guides. You will like it. It's going to be a good project because we will promote Volyn. And in parallel, this campaign started appearing, the national campaign. What is, there's a hashtag to travel Ukraine, in Ukraine. But we appeared a week or two earlier. We said you're just financing the bus, and we do the rest. You will see how the journalist works, and we will do the hashtags about Volyn. People love this, and for the first time we created content on an account of readers, and we got a lot of reader content. And then during that lockdown in summer, we took 3 trips like this, and it turned out that people were ready to support the editorial office if you have a correct dialogue with them. And there was a small but very motivated environment that was supportive of us, not only in this expedition but also in other projects. And we just had to call them. And there was another outlet that we were launching, was also very valuable and emotional, that our audience liked. And when in the fall we decided to collect funds, which was also urged by the fund of Rebirth, and we understood that it was a good business plan, and we decided to try. So that's where the crowdfunding topic has become relevant, and we noticed that people were ready to co-create. They are ready to participate in life of media. They are curious they want the outlets to be independent, and they want them to exist. And most importantly, they want to be part of some big idea. I can tell you which methods we used, because it will take a lot of time. But here the most important thing is that you created the new media from the scratch, only thanks to the reader's support, right? If I'm not wrong. Or do you have also some additional investments? No, we created this outlet during the lockdown without resources. At first, I was in my free time at night, I was working on it because I had to also, relieve myself from stress. We had a lot of content developed for 5 years on the historic topic, and we have 30 sites, and we pulled it into separate historical materials. And why not to use this resource if we already paid for this resource when we created it? So we started just actualizing them in another circle, and that's when it was very in time, because people wanted something else. They wanted to get distracted, to go into another world where there was no fear and anxiety. At the same time, this topic was a very timely one. I have dreamt of such media, but I thought that we would need 2 years or 3 until we get some funds for it. But when we saw that people liked it, and that they have never had historical news, there were always comments, and this was a very intellectual audience. They were very demanding, and they didn't forgive our mistakes, and they always set us a very high level. And they said, why didn't you do this subject better? And they said, well, we didn't have funds. Now when we have money, we can do it better. And it was nice when some of them told that we have sent you 300 hryvnias, and we never regretted it. So the readers community helped us to create the authors community, because the money that we have gathered or collected, we spent on fees to the authors who were good in historic topics. We ordered materials to professional researchers, historians, and around this outlet there was a circle number 3, the professional one, who are our authors, who sometimes just present us with some materials. They just give it to us. And these circles in the water, but important thing to mention, so those founders who helped us once, we proceeded working with them, organizing different events, engaging them to new expeditions. For 2 seasons, we have had already 13 trips like this. And if to count it, it's up to 200 people who took trips. Some of them go more than once, and some of them only took one trip. But this tradition has become like a separate brand. There's a separate group up to 500 people who follow it, bring in you. No, so far we only are in Volyn. We go in Volyn, and it's our focus. We want to show Volyn that the residents of Volyn don't know about, and they like it, and that they are ready to support it. And people who don't read us come to us. We get acquainted with them in the bus and tell them that there is an outlet, you can subscribe to it. And after this trip, please, tag it somehow or write a comment. And those people who support us and go with us or read us, they also extend the reading circle. So this crowdfunding has become not just the tool of involvement of funds, but it has become the tool to extend our audience, the marketing tool. Because if you are already preparing the campaign, you have to do it thoroughly, otherwise you won't be able to get money. So we are applying here many tools, and in fact we are trying them intuitively. Something works, something doesn't work. Like the recipe of the donut works. The people are ready to pay 50 hryvnias for a legendary recipe of the donut. So add your comment if you want this recipe, and then you can find out the secret ingredient. It's interactive. People love it. It's attention. It's communication, personal communication. And for media, it is very useful. Okay, dear colleagues, Oleh Pastukhov has joined us. He's expert U.S. Embassy Media Development Fund. Oleh, hello. Hello. Greetings. We have been just discussing with our colleagues how the independent media on the regional level to be more resilient, to be more sustainable to new challenges, and not to think about survival, but for us to have the opportunity to plan, at least for a midterm perspective. I wanted to ask you, we know that U.S. Embassy in Ukraine and the Media Development Fund for many years have been supporting different media initiatives. Do you have any interesting, useful projects right now, or did you have them in the past, or are you going to launch them in the future, which could be useful for the independent media, especially with the focus of the eastern region, and on the basis of which the financial model could be based? Of course we do. We have the competition that we have since 2000, and it's a like general tender, and sometimes we also arrange the thematic and regional tenders, and for independent media, because the party or communal state media cannot participate in our tender. As for the program itself, it can be, we have certain priorities for our participants, and that is to increase the level of journalistic profession, education, which is very important, and also the student internship and scholarship in the state and regional media. And that is also training in the television studios on the base of the universities. And I have to say that there are at least 15 studios like this. I mean, the 15 universities have our studios, and even now similar projects are ongoing, like in Berdansk University that is modernizing radio studio now. Such projects are not only to procure the equipment for the TV or radio studio, it's also the scholarship for students and education. We always invite top trainers for such trainings, and students can work there because we often urge these studios to work as production studios, and very often in regional cities like Zaporizhia, Berdansk, Mariupol, students become part of programs which broadcast on the local TV or radio channels. Of course, the direction, it can be the favorable condition for the development of Ukrainian media. The media ethics support. As an example, very recently we have financed the Commission on the Media Ethics, on our journalistic ethics, on certain programs. It can be the monitoring of violations, holding trainings on detection of disinformation, manipulation in media. And of course, we do not ignore the problem that is now relevant, that concerns the pandemic. It can be holding trainings for journalists on the local level, exchange of best practices and experience. It can be a series of thematic articles on COVID topic, or fake news about COVID, problem of disinformation, vaccination topic. So many, lots of programs that touch upon aspects of media surviving during in these difficult times. And we do not provide institutional support. We provide support only to certain projects which will fit in those priorities that I have just specified. The amount of grant can be up to $50,000, and from 1 to 12 months long. Of course, it's an open procedure. Those who work with us, they know we have a certain number of projects. We process them technically. So the Media Development Fund is checking these projects, those that are not per our profile. We understand you. And after this, all these projects that we have technically selected, they are submitted to the Commission, and then there's open voting after submission of the documents, and then the voting takes place, which defines the projects that are the winners.
Thank you so much. And now please tell us, as a donor and also as an expert in media development, what would you recommend our colleagues from the regional media? for becoming financially independent, what they shall do? Are there any concrete recommendations on your behalf? Are there any innovative directions that will be used? The thing is that we cannot recommend or dictate which project that shall use, because often people call us and say, can you please tell us what would you fund now so we can create a project? So the thing is, it's not exactly what you... So let me put it in another way. What people shall do to become more independent? We can do what we can do. They can join a series of trainings where we can provide our experts and they can propose their experts. It might be financial independence of the media, it might be promotion of advertising, or how they can work with advertisers, how they can promote themselves in internet, on the radio, and so on and so forth. It depends on the media themselves. Of course, we take into account this if it corresponds to our priorities. Of course, they can take a look at our website. I won't focus on the priorities and the technical details because all this information is available on our website. As for your question, then I would recommend this way. Of course, taking part in trainings. I don't want to boast off because we always offer, we have the opportunity to provide top trainers to those who would like to join those trainers. For example, Andrei Kulikov. There are a lot of other trainers. Roman Zayets. As for the radio, there might be cases. We recently had a training by Sonia Sotnik from Radio Rocks. It all depends on the expert which is needed. We do our best to provide a top trainer for a training. So it seems like your partners, in addition to financial support, can also use your expertise from your pool of experts. Not expertise, but as trainings, only trainings, right? For example, if they want to take part in a project to analyze media, to do a research, we can help. Of course, this will be Ukrainian trainings and Ukrainian experts. Thank you so much, Oleh. I know that you are limited in time. I would be very grateful if you rest with us until the end of the conversation. Probably you will have additional questions. Thank you so much. Valery, what about you? So Mr. Pastukhov has just said that people can reach out to us to request a training, we can help them with advertising, and you started your media as a business, and your first business model was related to working with advertisers in the city where you work. And then, as far as you know, you wanted to develop. You had a so-called development crisis. You started diversifying, and you're happy with the result. For example, because you had a lot of improvement. Can you please share this experience? because last year we discussed monetization. However, your experience is unique. Last year, the situation since last year has changed much. The project started as a social project. This idea originated in 2016 in our city. After the Russian occupation, we were left without news outlets, and we needed to do something to that. It turned out that part of the media didn't work, and we needed to find a solution to let media experts and journalists to continue working from the city itself. So it was that was an idea. I promised that I would support this idea, that everything would be okay, and then when experts will come, I will learn. I will do something new. In 1 year, we became media #1 in our city. In 2 years, we bought our own office and we started developing. Now this is a media holding which is called Make Sense. It includes 4 directions, 4 areas. The first one is the news platform itself with all additional social media. This is production studio, this content agency, which promotes social topics through social media. And we also have a sales house, which is engaged in selling advertising on our platform and on many other platforms. It can cooperate with other companies which are located in our city, in Oblast, or all over Ukraine, because there are a lot of advertisers that we work with. So we diversified our activities, and we scaled up what we could. But why that happened? They happened because we didn't approach our work as media. Media was part of our work. However, we had a full-scale business. And we had a set grant story. In our career, we only won 2 grants. They just asked them to win these grants, and we didn't know that it can be done like that. We started earning money not thanks to grants. I just didn't know that we could do it any other way. We needed to make money, and we started making money. For many years we are trying to change the situation. I am part of many projects. We have with MDF, a project with MDF. And what we do, we understand that content is important. By how this content is created, how it is distributed is also very important. We need to understand how how to make sure that we make enough money for distributing this content. We need to have support from all our partners. This is the key task that we still have today. By the way, right now I can tell you about that. Now we have new project with MDF for 12 months. We have gathered our experience with the past 3 years working with 69 organizations, 60 organizations. And now in Donetsk, Luhansk and Kherson Oblast, we are launching this project. This project will aim to tackle the situation. We will review work of all the media. As part of this project, there were 10 media. Will think of a business model that will work for them, and we will find ways how to implement this monetization in real life. Yes, so this is a regional project in Donetsk, Luhansk, and Kherson Oblast. For the next year, we will work with these organizations. All those who will be motivated enough to join this project. If you want, you can still join, because that would be an excellent project. We will change the media, which will help them learn and develop, because we all had short programs for 3 to 6 months. So here this project is aimed for 12 months. We join an organization and we continue working with them. And I think that we will be surprised with the results. Those organizations that work with us, those and all the others would like to join us. Oleh, if you are still with us, our colleague Andrei Dubchak asks if the US Embassy supports reporters, media who write about the conflict with the Russian Federation. Of course, we support them. We support reporters. We support any projects which write about the conflict in Donbass. And your grant program is also open on rolling basis. Yes, that's right. You're absolutely correct. It's you can still join in the hope that it will always be like this. Tetiana? So Valery has said something important. We started as a social project, but then we became financially successful. However, we know that in our market, there are a lot of organizations that are living off grant money. They are not self-sustaining. Where is this threshold where the donor says, okay, we are ready to support media that will need to become self-sustaining in a couple of years and only use 50 to 70% of our money? Do you have this criteria when selecting your partners? How do you avoid situations so people start thinking about being self-sustaining and thinking less that donors will save for them? This is a long story, I must say. Partners that we work with on a regular basis, big partner organizations, they get consultation support from us. We analyze their work. USAID doesn't have experts who evaluate the work of our project, media program in Ukraine. We are conducting opinion polls among our partners about how this project is developing. We had an intermediary report recently. Recently, we have also carried out a donor had an expert who carried out financial resilience, financial capacity for further development for all our partners. We do our best to make sure that this organization understand what they are capable of, what opportunities they have for diversification. However, we must say that there is a problem with motivation, with self-motivation. Some organizations don't believe that it is possible, especially those civil society organizations who have public missions. It is quite difficult for them to understand that media can be business organizations. That is why we always try to help them. Sometimes we coordinate it ourselves, or we hire external experts, but it all depends on the partner and whether they will be able to use it for their own benefit. Does it make sense to support those media who are doomed to continue using grant money, who cannot become sustainable without grant support? And I have several examples. We had research in 2020 and 2019, a model of financial support, or a financial model of independent media all across Europe, in Eastern, Western Europe, including Ukraine. And the biggest revelation for me was a Bulgarian media outlet. Our colleagues from this media outlet, they are self-sustained. They are supported with reader support. They do not sell advertising because they are investigative journalists. They were the only media all over Europe. They told us a story.
Before Bulgaria became member state, EU member state, we lived just like our other colleagues. Our market was supported by donors. And then when we became member state, all of these mechanisms stopped working, and the internal European internal financing mechanisms went in force, and we had a radical disappearance of independent media because money stopped coming. This was purely media project several decades ago, but it did happen. So I'm always afraid that this can happen in Ukraine, especially watching the stories of Afghanistan, where 74% of salaries of the officials was on account of American international aid. Thanks, 91% of budget was also aid. And I know that never media want to refuse donor money and start looking for money, just like the colleagues told about it. Could it be like the approach from both sides? We don't end up on the stage when really cool media gained independence and started producing good content, but then they had to reduce their activity or just to shut down because there was the question of money. We believe that independent media in Ukraine will remain, and then quantity will only increase. Our project is for 5 years. It's a 5-year project. And for 5 years, we give the signal to the Ukrainian independent media saying, here are the opportunities, grant opportunities, big or smaller, depending on duration. They can use it as a trampoline to start their new business decisions and to develop the strategic component to plan business models, to test these business models, and so on. We can't give a verdict and say this media will die or is already dying. The world is so changeable, and the media sphere is changing also very fast and often. Each media is to have the development plan for a year, for 3 years, and for 5 years. And for each of these plans, they have to have plan A, B, and C. Then it will be more or less constructive development plan. Okay, thank you. Yelena? Tell us, please, when you got your first funds from local IT cluster, was it 100% funds that supported your activity, right? And now you're on the level of 60%. Yes, and our goal is, I mean, the financing is the same, but the costs, the expenses of the editorial office, they are growing, because when we started, we were 3, and we were all working, a lot. And when we were only creating news, and there were no people who would create some publications, no people who could also do ads or develop the community of readers. So the team started growing. Last year, we started creating video content. Before this, we didn't have it, so we hired a separate editor who started working or producing video content, video interviews. We have created our own studio. We equipped it. Of course, those were additional costs, but we didn't take money for it. We have some basic support. We're grateful for it, but we understand that that's something that makes us, gives us the possibility to function. But we either use the these are contributions of the readers, or the advertising gives us some, money too. And I hope that our cluster will support us in the future too, but we can also develop other sources of financing. And you mentioned this Renaissance project. We also participate in it, and we know if we didn't submit for it, we wouldn't have such a you know, urge to develop. Actually, we have additional motivation because, you know, the more we collect, the more the donor will give us, and it will enable us to develop better. Okay, thank you. Yelena Danilova is asking, how do you find the balance between the good quality journalism and to justify the expectation of those who give money for media, whether it's a donor, the audience, or business? It's an important question. I would divide it into blocks. And let's start with the most obvious, business. Because donors and audience, I know that they are not super active to influence something. Okay, when you say word business, you're looking at me because with you this component is the most developed. Sorry, I just know all your cases. So how do we avoid the situation with business? How do we make it that you could do good journalism but your ad income doesn't suffer? But it's the answer and the question, are they in the same domain? You just have to mention this condition. Nobody from business can have an impact on you. If they pay for some service about some publication or content, that's all. That's where their participation ends. It would be strange if you came to some supermarket and you said, I want this and please replace it, and that's all. That happens too, of course, but that's weird. There are those who say change the director. Well, maybe they have some reasons to say it, but if you bought half of supermarket, then maybe for you they would change their cashier. Well, but I doubt it when this is going to happen, when even if it's 60%, because it's just part of some activity and it allows finance the right journalism. I mean, per standards. And that's all valuable. And if we initially have this possibility for business to support standards of journalism and discuss it in advancing that this is our mission, in our company we have two missions. First mission is to help our readers. Second mission is to help business. And these two missions, they are always in parallel. We help business, and thanks to this, we have the possibility to help the readers. When you say when you speak about conditions, is it some ad policy? Well, clearly that's an editorial policy, ad policy, and you use it all together when you pitch something. We go through it only when we start working with some company, and later on this company will have no questions because they will know these are the rules, but we just discuss them initially. We say that we cannot advertise this, and that we don't work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we clearly outline things we won't do. Super. Okay, thank you. Do donors have expectations from media? And does it contradict to good quality journalism? Internews is no donor. It's a sub-grant organization that is implementing donor projects on financing of USAID. I think there is no conflict here between following the editorial policy and trying to earn money. If it's a professional media, they're going to do it professionally. There will be no problematic situations there. As for the situation that sometimes applicants think they have to submit propositions to satisfy expectations of donors or some project, this is the false strategy that it can lead to defeat. There should be project media. It has to be interesting, innovative, aimed at certain audience, to have the target audience and see how to achieve the results and how to analyze them. So we We don't dictate our partners what to do and how to do it. Those are their projects, and if they are of good quality, these ideas, we just support them and do not interfere. Plus, you have a grant contract, right? Where everything is well regulated. No, we do not interfere in the editorial policy. And the partner is responsible for the project. If to sum up, can we say that when you submit, you should submit your project you want to implement as media, and donor will support it, and then there will be no conflict? Or just like my colleague asked, you will not have to justify anyone's expectations. Our program, there's the project description with clear objectives. First is to increase, to produce good quality content in the east of Ukraine. It's half of the media program of Ukraine project. Second objective is to increase demand of the public for quality information. Third is support of media reform. And fourth, support of the key media institutions. So any projects should be in compliance with these program objectives. And if we speak about some thematic tenders, then it's necessary to attentively read what kind of activities they can offer. And that's all. And they submit if it coincides with their strategy and activity. Okay, thank you. Natalia, how to balance expectations of the audience that gives you money and that good quality journalism that want to communicate some info? There is no conflict here because the audience that is funding the editorial office, they understand very well what it is necessary for, which values we have, and this is done by people who share those values, and they never, okay, this has never happened to us that somebody would try to impose something. There could be some discussions, but on that part of the question, I would like to draw attention to another thing: how to manage it all. Because when there's an editorial office where the editor-in-chief is to manage it all, and here it's money from the readers, and also the report to be prepared for the donor, or the ad didn't like the banner. So sooner or later there might be the crisis, managerial crisis. And our office, we distributed roles, labor distribution, when we took some responsibility or role from one of our colleagues, and we have distributed these roles. For example, I'm responsible for management of grant projects. I communicate with donors, prepare contracts, and so on. So my task is to bring such funds, donor funds and reader funds. So it's a big amount of work. That's why editor-in-chief has to be, we have to have the editor-in-chief who is in the content every day, and then the director who is in the process. And CID Media Group is a multi-brand editorial office. We have several outlets. It's just that ours is the most famous on the national level. And when we have distributed it, it was a bit creepy because we thought new salaries, where do we get money? But it's okay when we distributed this work. We increased the level of responsibility of our colleagues. It's also the possibility of advancement, another level of motivation. The managerial team just appeared inside of our office, and its team is able to do changes, and these changes are useful, and now we can involve investment as grounds for development and develop readership support.
We want to do that because our editorial office remembers well what it is to have money from the audience, to sell our product to the audience. The newspaper closed because the market of printed media is dying off, and we went online. So it was just perfect when we had our reader, when we had a newspaper. There is a bigger print run if it is interested to the readers. As for online, we have 4 million viewers per year, but where are those money? We didn't manage to get a lot of money, to generate a lot of money from them. We understood that we needed to scale up. Crowdfunding is important. We want to talk to our readers about a more systemic support because those founders, this is a club. It's not a fake, it's a virtual, real club. They know each other. We always try to talk to them. We congratulate each other on birthdays, so we are closely connected. We now see that a lot of people support us. Most of those people made a repeated contribution. So my vision is the following. Those people who are with us, they are ready to support us on a regular basis, but we are network. We have 30 small websites with different audience, and this audience doesn't support us yet. However, we haven't worked with this audience. Why we didn't offer this partnership approach before? We were aware of those legends so that people are not ready to pay. Another legend is that people are ready to pay. It was also a myth that we debunked because this is the question of balance. How ready we are to develop this balance? How do we make it popular? In some cases we managed to do that, in some we didn't. If the editorial office chooses a diversified model of income, it all requires management. It requires more effort than just go at work and make news. You need to learn a lot, you need to do a lot. As for the forum 2019, where we discussed readership models, I do remember that skepticism that reigned there. They said, so what are you telling to us? It's different from the US that you quote. And then the pandemic started and the world changed. Everyone went online. And there were spare money on the market. I just want to say that we all have those stereotypes. When someone tells me, even in our editorial office, some people say, I don't think that it will work. However, it does work. So you managed to attract money, right? Well, if you're interested, I can tell you more about that. When we started, we thought we have a lot of readers. They start every day reading our website. We see statistics that people browse our websites early in the morning and late at night. So we thought, wow, we were so popular. Then we said our readers support our project, and the readers were like, money? Which money? So the question is to you. Our participant wants to ask, is your media uh, as like a showcase for what you do? So this is a question to both of you. Rayon UA, this is a network of hyperlocal websites which highlights the life of the community. Now we're working for Oblast of Ukraine, Volyn, Zakarpattia, Rivne and Lviv. All these media outlets have the task to develop the community where we work. Consequently, in most regions we have our own journalists. they are known, people know where these journalists live and work. We create a lot of content. Thanks to this content, we have six specialized editions which are dedicated to sports, culture, environment, and business. Because these topics have their own audience, we always attract new readers. And we also are read by people abroad, by Ukrainian diaspora or labor workers. Uh, we try to cater to them as well. As for the advertising, grants, and readers, so these are all resources to reach our goal. Valery? For us, our website is the showcase because we are communication experts. We know how to work with our audience due to contact, due to our marketing processes. Because we need to understand how to tackle a particular issue. In this way, we can say, for example, we started working here in this way. This is the result that we reached. When a business organization comes to us and says, how will you help us develop our audience, our community, our marketing strategy? We say, if we manage to create the best media in our region, then most probably we will have enough expertise to do that for you. This is our showcase. We try to showcase our best cases, how to reach goals. What about media is about catering to this society? Yevgeny asks, is this the showcase for your services, or is it a response for social responsibility? Why do we think that this is something different? You can combine that. It seems to me that in our society, where's this situation when we said that something is black and something is white, and tertium non datur. We have a lot of interesting cases when people say about investigations. There was a project, Sila Pravdy, the power of truth. There was an investigation how often different judges make relevant decisions in car accident cases. It was our investigation. It seems like this was a situation where it is completely impossible to use partnership relations with someone. We offered 27 advertisers who wanted to support this project. So don't you think that, for example, producer of children car seats is bad in this case? This is both good for them and for us. This is their mission to produce and sell these car seats. Isn't it bad? I don't think so. I think it's good when business and media can unite to convey the truth. I think that's just great. That is perfect. And we do not need to say that on the one hand we have this mission and on the other hand we have business. Let's unite. It seems to me that it is, I think it's very good to unite. I think when we stand united, we can reach results better and faster. Dear participants, dear audience, please do ask questions because as you see, I am asking our speakers to answer them. Tetiana, my question is to you and to you, Valery, as well. I have an impression that many media executives or some of our talents just grow to a certain point and then each of them starts to create their own media. In my experience, there were dozens or even hundreds. Each of them has audience of several 100,000 people each month. Don't you think that the market has enough money to afford that? You're speaking of the donor market. By the way, all of the donors are independent. Oh, all of this media are independent. Do donors have enough money for everyone? Wouldn't it be better to unite these media to medium-sized organizations so they can survive together? It's difficult to answer this question. Do you know how much money is spent per media by donors at all? No, we don't know the statistics, unfortunately. I haven't seen it at least. Probably it would be interesting to investigate to have the statistics. However, there are a lot of media. The competition is very high. And it seems to me that in any case, we will lack enough money. All donor organizations will lack money for all the needs of different media organizations or civil society organizations, especially those who are going to exist using donor funds. That is why we are for coalitions and different kinds of unions between media organizations, creation of different networks, and we especially welcome collaboration between the media players and non-traditional players. I mean, business structures, advertisers, agencies, associations. It seems to me that that's the solution. We need to find opportunities in this direction. It will only strengthen your project if you continue partnerships with non-traditional market players. So recently we calculated the share of the market with you. Do you think it is enough for everyone, where every media can have a part of this pie without spending all the money at once and continue doing what they do? Let us face the facts. The demand will grow, the proposition will grow. To tell you the truth, contemporary market in local media almost doesn't exist. So market means when there is some kind of a demand and a share of proposition. However, it's not a fully fledged market. It's an emerging market. What we have for small companies, so this is what all regional media work with. I'm not talking of Lviv, Dnipro, Kharkiv or Kiev, because their situation is different. If we are speaking of local markets that work locally, there's no this advertising market. If the situation changes, the markets start emerging and the situation will change. Oleh, if you're still with us, we have a question from our audience to you. When donors support a project, do they take into account the audience? Would they support a project aimed at Bakhmut or to a wider region? It depends what kind of media it is or what kind of competition it is. If it is a general competition at the level of all Ukraine, then probably that would be Bakhmut, because this is a region which is very important. It all depends on the quality of the project. This is first what we take into account. If the project is sustainable, if it is strong and resilient, most probably we will support it. If we see that the project will be executed at a very high level, then we will support this project in the first place. This is our key criteria. Thank you. Natalia, question to you. It's interesting to me to follow the strategy which you selected for yourself. For example, Rayon Story, which is supported by contributions of your readers or viewers. So, which is your aim? Do you want to only use readers' support? Or for how long do you think you will use this money? A Rayon Story is a precedent when a media outlet exists with the money by readers. Many people think that this money just falls to us from the open skies, but it's not right. Of course, that's not right.
It would be great if you could finance all 6 of ours. And in summer, we had the chance to create a club around the Eco Rayon outlet, and there was the idea to create the club of founders then, and then the club of the product. No, it should be good product first, and that if people like it, then they can participate. So you have to take care from this side first. You have to look for funds that can enable you create good product with a story. When we used our content, our internal resource, used it creatively and launched it one more time, and that's where we won. So we want to fund Kultura also on account of the readers, because Kultura is the weaker idea than Historia or history. It's almost 23%. I hope it's going to be 25 when we finish today. And we'll manage to do it when we move from crowdfunding situational mode to the systemic work. And also I have a secret dream. Not everybody supports in my editorial office to do the business region such a good project that will be transferred to paywall. Now we cannot do it because we do not have this level of content, but when we become the Volyn Forbes, we will have the reader who's going to pay for the content. And we are to think how to do it in the way. It's very ambitious. How do we make this? How do we create this product? Content is the king. My task is to find so many resources on the grant market which will allow us to create a good product and then to turn it into the reader's one. It's very difficult, and maybe we are just incapable to do it because we lack journalists. We are growing so fast that we don't manage to close all of the needs of the content production on the level that our audience wants. We have, our audience is now used to good content, that they don't forgive us mistakes anymore. They always want something better, and that's what urges us to develop. And to sum up, we grow too fast. We are just so much in our work. When we have an idea, we are implementing it right away. We have the principle, if there's an idea but it wasn't implemented in 48 hours, it's going to die. That's why we try to do it very fast. And this enthusiasm we've had now for 7 years. But I understand we are to think more about strategy, resources, to be constantly working on the professional development of the journalists. To keep them is not that easy. So we have our own media school, media forum, and we look for some resources for some sectoral things like the cultural journalism, ecological journalism with our partners. So the school for beginners, it's with you have to make a contribution, and the specialized school, those were donor funds. We got money from the market. We didn't earn money on it, but we managed to involve partners, trainers, and as a result, we got qualified journalists. Yes, all those needs for new resources, we closed with those people who went to those skills. So it's a systemic work. The forum will take place, it will be the 6th forum in 3 weeks. The school for 7 years. And they are like our brands created by our editorial office. Okay, thank you very much. Natalia, I wanted to ask you if analyzing the audience of the region Historia and those who donate, are these the same people, or men usually donate and women read more? Did you analyze the founders of region history have become most loyal readers and partners of the editorial office. So we know them all, and these are people who read region Rozhescha because they come from region Lutsk because they live there. Also, they find it interesting to go through history. So it's a mix. People who read us are very much involved. Well, age, desegregation by age, well, we had 200,000 in region history, but 300 people voted for it. So that's a correlation matter, the people who are ready and those who are not. So it's up to 15%, 0.15%, but they have funded it because the model is the editor, the producer, and common work of all in the editorial office and the pool of journalists. What is the average contribution? 200 hryvnias. Tetiana, I have a question for you. I have been listening to colleagues, and they all succeeded in attracting some alternative financial sources, and they can do their journalistic activity. But at the same time, I have a very capitalistic, view approach. But I know if you use correct approach, donor funds is always the source to launch something new. You can use it either as a social investment or launch the school, after which you will have new people who will help you make more money. Do you have new programs, or how can our colleagues from the east of Ukraine, south of Ukraine, regionally submit to get some support? Yes, of course there are. Next year we plan the media program Internews is going to announce 3 thematic tenders or competitions. First will be announced in February 2022. It's going to be the journalistic investigations and journalistic solutions, and this grants competition is going to define those journalists who could create an interesting content that will work on detection of the problem. And that's for south and east of Ukraine, especially those who represent partnership with the local public activists or NGOs or other creative collaborations from different sectors, not traditional players of media market. Second tender will be to support financial resilience of media. This is the second competition to support financial independence of media. Before this, we have supported 12 media in 2020. So next year, this competition or tender will be supported on the local changes in the east and south of Ukraine for them to develop more entrepreneurship potential, thinking about how they can invest in their ability to use ads, membership, or to develop services needed for their audience. We shall consider the innovative approaches such as micro loans or events uniting the producers of content with the stakeholders and audience, or other ideas with some added value. And third, competition of projects will be on media literacy and critical thinking. We will announce it in August. It's going to be the competition of projects both online offline activity to increase efficiency of efforts fighting disinformation, which clearly who clearly understand which segment of the audience they want to cover and how to orient on it, supporting the after class activities in schools, assisting the journalistic skills development in schools, and suggesting unification of schools into networks for exchange of skills and resources. And here, the preference will be not only to the organizations from south, and we decided this is going to be Kherson, Zaporizhia, and Mykolaiv Oblast, but also Kirovohrad and Chernihiv. And we are encouraging to submit your applications. Of course, we cannot teach how to write them well enough, but we can consult When we announce a competition, we have the line where you can call and ask questions. As for the project itself and the budget itself, here we are for you to inform you and help you how to do this well enough. And for how long will this program last? On the support of funds attraction. Yeah, but for how long the project will last? Well, up to 6 months, but they can last longer depending upon the idea, the budget, and the reasoning. If this idea is well reasoned, that it should last longer than 6 months, then we can also support. Well, it's sufficient to launch something, check something, get some feedback, right? Valery, I have a question for you. You have achieved very good results in B2B segment, in my opinion, especially in your region, but I have never heard from you that you're planning to attract funds from the audience. Is there some concern behind it or some research, or do you still plan to do it? Well, this situation looks for me like these are beautiful 3 stories. Business, it's a story about collecting funds from the audience and then work with the cluster. I have many doubts that support from the readers is enough. I have many projects that get this support. There's a wonderful outline, Nanachasi in Zaporozhye, Katya, who produces, she is this outlet, and it's a wonderful story. She asked to support her, and she was supported, and she managed to collect $100. So how much for how long will she live on $100? Well, from the point of view that understanding that you're doing something important, but it doesn't lead to financial stability. This is something you need to work with, and then there's a question: will these money be enough? And that is why now I would build my work in applying differentiated approach. Maybe some place I would work only with certain cluster or business in specific region, and somewhere I would work with the audience, and somewhere working with the donors, and also all of these things have to somehow administer and to build in the strategy of development of any media campaign. Here we go back to the same problem, that there's a big situation with what Natalia mentioned, but we don't have time to do it. We have to separate duties, and always the situation is connected when we have to select either content or trying to organize correctly. Unfortunately, that's how it happens. Thank you. We are running out of time, unfortunately. This conversation is so interesting and so many questions. I'll give 30 seconds to each of you to sum up. Maybe on the basis of your experience, you can advise something to our colleagues. And most importantly is to start with something. So there are 3 different cases in 3 different directions. And I will start with you, Olena. I think most importantly, for those who is only thinking about creating a project, not to be afraid, to understand to which value you have for the region, for the readers, to realize its value, not to be afraid, to already agree on the rules on the bank of the river with the business. Thank you. My tips for media who want to be resilient and successful, well, first of all, to the diversification of income, not to compromise your editorial policy and values, because 4 or 5 years later it will be the biggest value. And never ask your readers, never be afraid to ask your readers to help you, saying that you need this help a lot, because practice shows that the audience is ready to help and pay the media they trust. Natalia? A chair standing on the 4 legs is always better than the 3 ones, and we are to be capable to openly and critically perceive and see our weak points, our strong points, knowing which resource we really lack. And actually, maybe it's not only the funds that we lack, maybe sometimes it's the concept or human resources or ideas.
If you find these minus, we'll find the plus, we will find the resource that we can use. It seems to me that we need to answer only one question. What do you want to achieve? And try to reach this goal. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to my colleagues for such an interesting conversation. I hope that our audience also received a lot of useful information and data. And now, after our panel, we will proceed to closing of Donbass Media Forum. Please do stay with us. I will give the floor over to organizers of the event. I would like to add to this panel what we see now in Ukraine. This is just an excellent time for media organization. We are on the threshold of big transformations. If we use this opportunity, I think that everything will change for the better. We cannot think of a better time, and I'm very happy that our donors support that. I am happy that there are those people who are open to innovations, to experiments, big ideas. And we hope that the situation will change for the better. Dear participants, dear colleagues, I'm really happy for being with us. Thank you so much.